It is I, John Reagan, the uncommon voice for the common man, coming to you today live from Shadyside, Ohio, where I have more than a few things to say about Big Daddy Obama bullying the Supreme Court. Make no mistake about it, he threatened the Supreme Court, or bullying, if you will. I actually have heard some political commentators say he was quote-unquote working the refs when it comes to the Supreme Court possibility that it will strike down big government-run health care. That's right. The constitutionality of that law is in question, and the Supreme Court is deciding that right now, and Big Daddy Obama, make no mistake about it, is bullying the Supreme Court. Now, let's listen to what Big Daddy Obama, His Mightiness, the man who is not a Muslim, actually said in a press conference Monday in the Rose Garden. Quote, ultimately, I am confident that the Supreme Court will not take what would be an unprecedented, extraordinary step of overturning a law that was passed by a strong majority of a democratically elected Congress. Strong majority by what? 5 or 6 votes, and in the United States Senate, that democratically elected Congress had to be bribed and corruption all involved in this, trying to get this thing passed in the dead of night. Because Big Daddy Obama, His Mightiness, the man who is not a Muslim, knows that the American people do not want this thing, at least the majority of them. So he has to use all sorts of tricks, hook and crook, to get this thing passed. And this Marxist dictator or president of ours went on to say this, and I just remind conservative commentators that for years what we've heard is the biggest problem on the bench was judicial activism or a lack of judicial restraint, end quote. Now, of course, what he's referring to is us conservatives being upset over the will of the people being overturned by federal judges. I point out the immigration law in Arizona, the gay marriage law in California, where the will of the people was overturned by one federal judge. Apparently, Big Daddy Obama has no problem with the will of the people being overturned by federal judges when it's something that he likes. But he's got a big problem with it when all of a sudden the constitutionality of something that he came up with is being questioned. And of course, we all know there were all kinds of state-led class action suits and lawsuits against Obamacare, and it all ended up in the federal court, and there is a distinct possibility that the mandate in that law that says that people are forced by the government to buy insurance is going to be struck down on unconstitutional grounds. And Big Daddy Obama, His Mightiness, the man who is not a Muslim, cannot stand that. So what he's doing is he's working the rest. He's threatening them. That is what it comes down to. This man has threatened the Supreme Court, and he went on to say this. This is a good example, meaning, of course, judicial restraint. And I am pretty confident that this court will recognize that and not take that step. End quote. That means striking down his precious health care law. Now, of course, that might be construed as a thinly veiled threat, but a threat nonetheless. So what's Big Daddy Obama going to do if this thing is struck down? You know, and I know what's coming. He's going to find out where these damn justices live. He's going to have the SEIU union thugs there, the Acorn thugs, and they will protest out in front of their houses, because that is the act of a community organizer. But I'd rather say the act of a community agitator. And this guy is nothing short of a Marxist tyrant that would do something like this unless he doesn't get his way. We saw it in the case of the AIG. All that thing, all those executives had people protesting out in their house. They were all busted. They were all SEIU union thugs and paid stooges of the White House. So why wouldn't they do it in something as important as, say, health care? But with that being said, there is hope, because apparently there are some people, even on the left, that really don't care for their president bullying the Supreme Court. In fact, it got so heated that a federal judge in Houston, Texas, is just furious about it and told this to a representative of Obama's Justice Department during oral arguments and a separate challenge to the federal health care law. That's right, my hero, Justice Smith, Jerry Smith, actually told Obama's representatives from his damn jackbooted thug Justice Department, he said this to him, quote, I'm referring to statements made by the president in the past few days to the effect, I'm sure you've heard about them, well, who hasn't heard about them, that it is somehow inappropriate for what he termed unelected judges to strike acts of Congress that have enjoyed, he was referring to, of course, Obamacare. That's right. He has had enough of it. In fact, he actually told the Justice Department this. I want you to be sure that you are telling us that the Attorney General and the Department of Justice do recognize the authority of federal courts through unelected judges to strike down acts of Congress or portions thereof in appropriate cases. And he went on to say that the Justice Department has to submit a letter, double-spaced, and lines and all sorts of typographical stuff, and that has to be submitted to the Court of Appeals, and it has to be done pronto. And apparently, their worthless spokesman today came up and said that the Justice Department would indeed send that letter to Justice Smith. But of course, it should have never have come to that. The President of the United States should never, ever stick his nose in litigation matters that the Supreme Court is pending no matter what. And this guy is running his mouth without any just cause. It is unprecedented for him to get involved in a Supreme Court case. Now, with that being said, yes, these commentators on both sides of the aisle can say whatever they want to, but it is demeaning to the office of the President of the United States to get involved in it until that decision comes down. Then if he wants to offer new legislation, then that's his prerogative. But until this matter is solved and settled by the Supreme Court, then he needs to just keep his damn big left-wing mouth shut. And with that being said, I have heard news reports where some leftist publications actually are saying that if judges vote against Obamacare, they should be, quote, unquote, impeached. Well, let me tell you, left-wing wackos, something. If this man has no regards to the Constitution that he is sworn to uphold, then impeach might be the right thing to do. But I'm not talking about justices on the Supreme Court. I'm talking about Big Daddy Obama himself. The damn Republicans in the House of Representatives should not stand still for this and make sure that this man understands that if he threatens the Supreme Court of the United States again, that he may very well face impeachment charges. Actually, to be honest with you, I don't know why Boehner isn't doing that right now. He, after hearing these remarks from this damn Marxist dictator president of ours, he needs to step in and start those proceedings. Or, at the minimum, let him know that we are not going to take this anymore. You do not threaten the Supreme Court of the United States. Case closed, so to say. Until next time, this is your favorite conservative, Ronald Reagan, saying this to you now. If this man threatens the Supreme Court once again, then something needs to be done about it. And I mean that to you, John Boehner, and you need to get on the stick with Wick right now and get this thing going, because this man is nothing but a damn bully. I say this,